So, welcome to another edition of the Influence Global podcast. And I'm delighted to have a very special guest with me today. And that is no other than Charlotte Lake, who is the co-founder of Project X. Hello, Charlotte, and lovely to have you on the show today.
Hi, Gordon. So lovely to be here. I'm really happy to be talking to you on your podcast.
Great, super duper. And we're going to talk about performance marketing around the influencer space as well. It's an area that you and I were talking about just before we started this episode, and how interesting it is to be educating brands about this is not a nice to have sector anymore. It's almost like it should be an essential part of your marketing strategy. So, when you look at the early days of influencer marketing, it was very much at the top of funnel, wasn't it? It was about creating awareness, using influencers to talk about products. But, in the latter years, because of technology and a huge amounts of data, we're now getting some amazing results from everything from app downloads to real conversions. So isn't it fascinating how it's changed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I've really seen that change firsthand. From before setting up Project X, I was working more with celebrities and as a talent agent. And I think that what was happening is brands were selecting talent or influencers based on more of an emotional feeling. I feel that this person is really good for our brand. Their brand values are similar to ours. Those kind of conversations. Whereas now, I mean, the brands we work with, it's all about how that person's data comes out in the forecast and if that person is going to reach the KPIs that the brand has set. So I think the key difference now is before brands struggled with attribution with talent, celebrities, and influencers. They couldn't work out a way to prove if that person was achieving a return on the investment. Where that is now in place, it's still a long way to go with it, in my opinion, but it's much easier now to see the return that a brand can get from investing in an influencer.
Yeah, I mean, is that because, in terms of ROI, are you saying because somebody might be running a big campaign that's television, there's all manner of different elements within it, and how can they determine which, if it was successful, was it the ad campaign, was it the TV ads, or was it the influencer? Because there's a variety of different, omni-channel in a way, or whether or not nowadays, by just focusing on influencer marketing, we're able to get better results.
Well, even if the brand is working across multiple channels, because we can use, personalized UTMs, discount codes, the brand is able to measure influencer as a channel, even if they're running multiple other channels at the same time. Obviously, it's not foolproof. Like, you can't, just because the influencer talks about a brand, says swipe up on my link, uses the code, someone still might be influenced by that, but go away, Google it 3 days later and buy away from all that code and link. You're never going to be able to get all of it, but we are able to track it much better. And another thing that we talk to all of our brands about is making sure that influencer is, when brands have a post-checkout survey, making sure that influencer is included. And like, some brands are now able to even put the names of the influencer that have gone live with content recently, so that you can really, it's just another way to try and help the attribution.
Interesting. Oh, that's fascinating. So, and obviously we're in the position, all of us in this industry, to educate brands about, why they should be spending money, and why they should be investing more. A lot of it comes down to setting proper goals and objectives. So do you want to just talk about some of those, and when you're having that early stage meeting, it's very easy to say, well, what are you hoping to achieve? But the more specific the objectives, the more likely you are to get a meaningful result.
Yeah, I think it's really important. We work on two kind of services: paying influencers and gifting influencers, paid media and earned media. And within those two activities, the KPIs, in my opinion, need to be very different. If you're going into a gifting campaign and expecting to see sales skyrocket, you're potentially going to be disappointed. I'm not saying always. I think paid is slightly different because it can deliver acquisitions as well as brand awareness. But I think it's more with gifting. What do you actually think this is going to achieve? And being realistic about also just understanding that influencers are sent so many products. Everyone feels really protective of their brand. Of course, they're going to love it. Why would they not want to post it? We're being so kind in sending to them, but they're being, they've got an influx of products all the time. So you've got to really understand that yours has got to stand out. They don't owe you anything to post this. If they do, it's lovely. And then also you are not in control of what they say when they post it. It might just be a really small mention, or they might give a really detailed overview of the brand. So I always say to brands, if you need that control of what's being said, if you need the control of when it's posted, what time, then you need to do paid activity.
Absolutely. Yeah. But within the objectives,
sorry, I didn't talk about the objectives for the paid stuff. Sorry. A conversation we always have with our brands on paid essentially is, what is the cost per acquisition that you are looking to achieve? It's really important for us to understand that. Obviously, most times I'm like, wow, it's always ambitious.
So give me an example. Give me an example if you can. Have you got one that you can share?
I probably can't share actual numbers. Let me have a think. I mean, listen, we're always looking at kind of sub 50 CPA, sub £50 CPAs. And we will get influencers that absolutely knock that out of the park. But it's really important for us to understand that goal at the beginning, so that when we do, otherwise, what is a good performance?
Absolutely. Yes.
And also, what you can end up doing is having it can work in a blended way, where maybe some people come in above that, but with people coming in below that, then the blended CPA can work out. So it's all a bigger picture. You can't look at each influencer kind of on its own. You've then got to look at it as a whole as well, and blend all the numbers together.
And of course, that's where your expertise comes in, isn't it? Is being able to, what the client is wanting to achieve, and your idea is to mix the cake, isn't it? Is to create the right ingredients for that campaign to work successfully with all of the knowledge that you've got to enable that to happen.
Yeah, exactly. We've been doing this for a while. There are some amazing influencers who are such great fits for brands, but we have seen previously that they don't necessarily drive people to buy. But if I'm working with a client that is looking for brand awareness, great reach, good brand fit, I would put those people. So it's really important that I understand what they're looking to achieve from the beginning, so that we can match the right kind of people so that they achieve their KPIs.
And it's a really interesting point that you make there, because I know that I was working on a project a while ago with trying to find food creators to have their own personalized cookbook. Which was really, really cool, actually. The brand had quite a lot of specific requirements, which I felt was somewhat restrictive, if I'm honest. We want this, we want that, we want this, and then like, all the time you're moving it further narrower. But what we did find is that some of the creators that had smaller follower bases were just great salespeople. And there were others that were just great food content creators. They had lots of interesting stuff about foodies and stuff like that. But, I mean, we're talking about people that had got, 15, 20,000 outselling 100,000 type influencers easily.
Yeah.
Because actually they were just great at selling something. They were passionate about what they believed in. They were just selling more.
Yeah. I mean, there's always the unexpected always happens. People that you wouldn't necessarily, this always happens to me with brands. They think they know exactly the kind of influencer they want to work with. We put some left field options in they're not sure about. They do some great content and absolutely smash the KPIs. I always encourage brands to take some risks in terms of going slightly outside of the kind of person who they think is right. But you've got to test different, you can't just say, this is who we are as a brand, this is the kind of influence we want to work with. You've got to test different followerships, different categories, everything different.
Yeah. Well, the
And
other
then
thing, of course, by having more micro influencers or indeed nanos, it gives you it gives you much more depth, doesn't it, for your budget? So you could find little micro niches within those creators, maybe within different ethnic communities, for example, that perhaps had been untapped, or different cultures, like different languages, all that type of thing, and you can get some really interesting surprises out of that, can't you?
Yeah, we normally work with a brand on a test campaign to get them up and running, and across that campaign we will make sure there's a really diverse mix, so with a big hitter as well as some really small micro influencers, and across all different categories: food, lifestyle, beauty, sustainability. So then at the end of that test we can really see where were the golden nuggets, where did it really work, and then from there you can build the channel.
And how long are your campaigns normally on average?
Most of our clients we work with on an always on basis.
Always on.
And that is because we proved the channel early on as being essentially unbeatable. And it has to then become part of their marketing mix. For a lot of our clients, this channel is one of their top performing channels. Not always in terms of volume, but things like it provides the best lifetime value from a customer. And to me, that makes sense. If someone buys through an ad, a Google ad, for example, they're just being sold to by an ad. So yes, maybe they become a customer and they use it a couple of times. But if someone's getting a personal recommendation from someone else, there's much more involved in that, which then means the customer's more bought in and might then be, a customer with the brand for a much longer period of time, which is really valuable to the brand.
Of course it is, and it's why we see so much growth in ambassador programs, because they see that sort of long-term commitment, and why sometimes the single post, they can be sometimes disappointed with the expectations being quite high and not necessarily always performing. I mean, it can be, but I always say, it's like anything. If you see something for the first time on TV, do we go out and rush and buy it straight away? We don't always, do we? The difference, of course, with an influencer, they can bring that brand to life in a way that perhaps the TV and other marketing advertising mediums don't.
Yeah, and I think within an always on campaign, we will have a group of influencers that we work with within a long-term contract. So once we've proven an influencer works, if we can then sign them to a 6-month contract, that influencer then feels really secure with the brand. There's a really good relationship, and dare I say it, that is when the authentic content really starts to come through, because it does become part of their whatever. We're working with a toothbrush brand at the moment, and then the influencer is using that day and night. It becomes part of their daily routine, so the content gets more and more authentic as the time passes, and we see that with a lot of brands we work with. So
and what do you think are some of the real standout campaigns? What sort of companies have really nailed influencer marketing in your eyes? Whether they're yours or anybody else's,
of course, I would think that our own. No, but what I've been really impressed with lately is Marks and Spencer, I think, actually. Because I would say they used to be much more safe and very traditional with the influencers they used. Obviously, they've had a big campaign with Sienna Miller, which came out last month. But around that, I've been really impressed with the type of influencers they've been using, just much more forward thinking, much more relevant. And also the content, they've obviously signed them with longer term deals. So people are posting about it as part of their everyday, outfits. And it's worked on me. I mean, I'm the worst person. I work in this industry and yet I'm influenced so much, especially with clothes, beauty. I buy it all from influencers as well.
Do
But I
you?
feel like that's been a campaign that's actually really caught my attention. They've gone far and wide, a lot of different types of people rather than just the people that you would expect from
Mm,
Marks and Spencer. And
mm,
I think also with Sienna Miller, that was genius
mm,
casting,
yeah.
because no one would expect Sienna to be the face of Marks and Spencer.
No. Well, in a way, it makes it it makes it cooler, and it shakes the bottle. In the same way that Ryanair used to have loads and loads of complaints, and until they employed comedians, comedy agency to write some of their social media content, and now the Ryanair posts on social are hilarious.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Do you know that they've got
No, I hadn't seen that.
expert comedy people, so they're riding on the back of some of the trends, but it's hilarious, and that's what we, look at it. At the end of the day, it entertains us. If it entertains us, it leaves us with good positive vibes, which makes us feel good about the brand. And yeah, so that's something that sort of jumped out at me. But I mean, if you look at some of the big clothing brands and how they've embodied influencers, particularly the female ones as well, I mean, they've been phenomenal, haven't they, with Shein and Temu and and Pretty Little Thing, all of them have really. It's so competitive though in fashion, isn't it? My God, my goodness.
Yeah, we actually don't work at the moment across any fashion brands, and I do feel like it's quite a niche part of influencer marketing.
Mm,
And it's really about building the relationship with that influencer, and them maybe borrowing pieces. It's a foundation to build that relationship with them. The
mm,
products, we work with a lot of D2C brands that are subscription. A lot of them are also subscription.
mm.
I mean, other brands that I think do influencer marketing really well, like HelloFresh is
Oh yeah.
like obviously leading the game. But there's a company I've seen recently called Real, RHEL. It's like I think it's a green juice shake. And Eastrid, the shaving razors, they've done some great stuff as well. I think that when I see it, it's trying different influencers, picking the ones that work, and then building a really good long-term relationship with those, and
Mm.
then getting that really authentic content that fits into their kind of daily life.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So in terms of measurement criteria, what are the things that you are measuring and going back to the clients with? We talked about objective setting and what sort of stuff are you measuring?
Yeah, so obviously reporting is a huge thing for us. So we report back on the reach, and then we'll look at what that was versus what we forecasted, the link clicks, the sticker taps, and then we can provide all of that information from the influencer, and then the client will input how many new customers they got from the UTM link and the code. So that's quite a lot of data to then be sifting through and figuring out why, who, where, how. But it's really interesting the patterns that emerge from that, which we can then use to develop the channel even further.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of go even deeper, starting to record the days and the times that people went live, and is there a pattern?
Yeah.
Is it that if someone goes live at 8 a.m., the reach and the link clicks are much stronger than if they go live at 6 p.m.? And can we definitively say that there is a pattern and therefore we need people to go live at 8 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, is there a lot will say, of course, it depends on that influencer's audience that might be different to others. But there are obviously certain patterns around the most time people are engaging in that type of content. Do you use any AI tools at all to help you with any of this data analysis?
We don't use any AI tools. We are actually, I'm not sure if this that the we use Story Clash, and I want to check now if they've got AI. They're going to kill me if they listen to this for not knowing off the top of my head. Yes, they do use AI.
Do
They
they?
will
Okay.
kill me.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah,
But it's just
I
an
think
interesting thing now, isn't it? The importance of data and getting these trends of what you're saying is because if a marketeer can start to it's all this is all about performance, isn't it? And the more data that we can pick up these trends about timing, length of content, if it's a video, for example, what's the sweet spot there? Are the hooks? What are the hooks? If you've got 8 or 10 influencers, are all the hooks the same or are they different? And it's you could dissect and dissect. You need this is what's fascinating about AI at the moment. The most sought after job is a prompt engineer.
yeah, and I think what you can't really measure it if you've got to keep some things the same so that it's like a
Well, absolutely.
fair means of
Yeah.
testing. So, if we're starting to work with a brand, we'll make sure that all influencers are working from the same brief, rather than different briefs for different people. That's just, one way of, but then as you develop the channel, you can then start having lots of different briefs and then seeing how they perform against each other. And I think when you're in the testing phase for the first few months, you're just gathering, and then but as the channel develops, some of our clients we've been working with for 2, 3, 4 years, you've then got so much information, you're really clear on what works. It doesn't mean that you just kind of rest on your laurels and there's always more.
I know, and I hear what you're saying. I think that's another good reason to work with a client on an ongoing basis, so you really understand the product mix. It's the influencers that are almost embedded within the team, aren't they, more than anything else? And I think that's really fascinating. Amazing. I mean, we could talk about this for ages and ages and ages, and we have slightly overrun our time, but that's because it's such a good podcast. Thank you, Charlotte, so much for sharing your insights today. So how can people find out more about you and your company?
We are Project X. We are projectx.co.uk, and we're also posting regular content on our LinkedIn page.
Right, lovely. All right. So thanks again for joining us on the Influence Global podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.